So son, remote viewing is always focused on something called a target. A target is the thing you're supposed to perceive. Now, a lot of people ask, why should you focus on one thing rather than another thing? Well, the remote viewing works because you have the intention of focusing on something and describing something that is going to satisfy the informational needs of some other person. Now, that other person could be the person who designed the target, which is the thing you're supposed to be focusing on. It could be the person who's going to analyze the session but didn't design the target, or it could be you. So it's a mental connection between you when you're remote viewing, when you're actually doing the session, and that other person or yourself for whom the information is supposed to be gathered. Now, in order to do this, the mind has to be really quiet. That's why we always precede remote viewing with meditation, to calm the mind down. I worked with remote viewers over the whole world that have been resistant to the idea that their minds have to be calm, and they work for years on remote viewing and occasionally get good target contact and think if they work a little longer they'll get better and better and better. But I can see with the results, their minds are popping like firecrackers. Their minds are not deeply settled. With meditation, you calm the mind, but you don't actually seek information. You're just calming. So you have the potential to perceive information with meditation, but you don't actually do it. But it's the old biblical saying, ask and ye shall receive. Remote viewing works like that. So essentially you're working for about an hour during remote viewing, and you're doing something called probing, which is asking for information. So when you're in that deeply settled mind, information just doesn't come to you. You're deeply settled. But when you ask for information, it comes to you. Now, if the mind is lively, popping away, then you can't differentiate between what the conscious mind is doing and the actual information that's coming. So the mind has to be really calm for you to be able to perceive that new, subtle information that's coming to you. Anyway, as I've mentioned, I'm glad you meditate. If I could get all remote viewers to meditate before their sessions, it would improve things a lot. And they often work for years. Again, it's one of those things where you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force the horse to drink the water. So anyway, but for you, you know that the quiet, calm mind is an absolute prerequisite for accurately perceiving anything. Because only then can you differentiate between what the conscious mind is doing, which is often just inventing things, and what you're actually perceiving. So remote viewing works because you're focusing on this thing called a target, which is designed by somebody, and you're doing it totally blind, so you don't know what the target is. But when you do the actual session, you're making a telepathic connection between yourself at the time that you're making the session, doing the session, and that other person. Now, that other person is the person for whom you're doing this session. So that other person will have the session, say it's on a paper and pen session. We'll have the person, will have the session in front of her or his face, plus a picture and description of the target, the thing that you're supposed to be perceiving. Now, the thoughts that that person is having is acting like a laser pointer to get you to that. That means you're connecting telepathically with that person without even trying. And whatever thoughts that person has on her or his mind is creating that focus of perception, like a laser pointer. So if that person else on her or his mind, like they're bored or they're hungry or they don't feel like doing that, that becomes the target. If that person believes that the viewer is not a good viewer and this session won't be good, that becomes part of the target, and the session reflects exactly that. It's not such a good session. If the person who's analyzed the session believes that this session's really great because the person's a really great viewer, then that session will turn out to be on average very, very good. We've done lots of experiments along these lines. And we've even done experiments where the tasker thought the session was from one person who was really good, and the tasker thought that that person's really good session, but it was actually from a different viewer who the analyst didn't think was very good. And in fact, the session turns out to be really great. And then afterwards, the analyst says, gosh, I didn't know that person could do a session like this. So whatever that person is thinking becomes the focus of perception, including any evaluations that the person is having. That's why often, not always, but at the Farsight Institute, when we do sessions, we actually have the viewer be the first person to compare the viewer's own session to the actual target. That process of comparing the actual remote viewing data to the actual target is called closing the sessions. And to avoid any type of bias in some of our scientific experiments, we actually have the viewer being the very first person before anyone else can do it, compare the session to the actual target. That closes the time loop from when the session is actually done and when the session is actually analyzed for the first time. After that's done, it doesn't matter what happens. Anyone can look at the session and it won't mess with it. But that first time that the session is analyzed by the viewer or by an analyst or by somebody, that actually creates the focus of perception, including any biases or prejudices that are involved in the analyst's mind. So many, many, many viewers have commented that their absolute best work is always done at the Farsight Institute, in terms of consistency and that's because we're so careful about how we close the sessions. We always make sure that the person looking at the session and the data for the session's data and the target for the first time has nothing on her or his mind, has no prejudices involved, and is really focusing on that target. Nothing else is really bothering the person at that time. So it really improves the accuracy. So it's important to know that I've written about this in articles and in books, and I would say that most viewers don't believe it. Most viewers just sort of think it's something else and they smile and they just don't take it seriously. But if you look at their track record across time, when they do sessions for us, on average, they're way better than when they do sessions for other people because of that closing process. And eventually the information will be believed. You can tell somebody that something's true, but that doesn't mean they're going to believe it and actually change their behavior on something. But I'm telling you this so that you can know from the start, to get that high level of accuracy, you have to be working with someone who understands the closing process and will be comparing the actual session to the target in an intelligent manner. So what we do to get the process started is to open up a window for the remote viewing perceptions to come through. So normally, even after meditating, the conscious mind is still very lively, and it's used to being in control. And so when it's in control, we have a situation where it doesn't easily like to give up control. Consider it similar to a guard in a prison system. And you've got this subspace mind. We call the soul, or the real you, the subspace mind, or the higher self. But the subspace mind is sort of a neutral term. The higher self infers that it's better, bigger, stronger, but actually you yourself is just as important as any other level of yourself. So a neutral term is simply the subspace mind, which is the larger, bigger part of you. Well, that subspace mind is operating inside the body and making it work. When you're remote viewing, the subspace mind is actually doing the perceptions. It's got to get it through to the conscious mind so you can write it down or describe it on video. So how do you actually get that to go through? Now, the more you do a remote viewing session, the more the conscious mind and the subspace mind sort of coordinate together and the information comes through, so you're just recording what you're perceiving. But in the beginning, to get it started, you've got to occupy the mind of the conscious mind so that the subspace mind can slip information through. So think of the conscious mind as a guard in a prison system, and the subspace mind is like a prisoner. And so if you have a guard in a prison system and you get that guard to focus on twiddling his thumbs constantly, what are the prisoners going to do? Well, they're going to escape because the guard's not looking. So what we do is we occupy the mind of the conscious mind a little bit so that the subspace mind can slip information through. That's exactly what happens, by the way, with meditation. You repeat the mantra, and what the mantra is doing is occupying the conscious mind's attention, And then it lets the subspace mind, sort of the awareness, the perceptions, the focus of attention, focus on to settle down to the subspace mind's attention. Now the subspace mind, sometimes called the higher self, it doesn't use words. It uses raw perceptions. It just sees something. For example, it sees and knows this is a desk. It doesn't use the word desk. But when we write something down, we have to write it down in words. So we have to use our conscious mind to do the remote viewing session, but we also have to use our subspace mind's ability to get the perceptions in the first place. So there's a translation process that's going on. You're actually getting the perceptions, seeing something, and then you're decoding what that is or writing it down in words. So when we actually do this, we're going to do something to start with called an ideogram. An ideogram is something like spontaneous writing. It's something that you're just going to write really quickly. Now, you're going to do it while or just after you have written down something called the target coordinates. And the target coordinates, sometimes called the target ID, are literally just random numbers. Literally random numbers. Random numbers. They don't have any meaning whatsoever. In the old days, there was a superstitious belief that the target coordinates were somehow associated with a spot on the planet or with some special target, like they're really, and the remote viewers and even the scientists didn't understand that the so-called target coordinates were just a way of busying the conscious mind so that the subspace mind could get information through, and the target coordinates didn't have any meaning whatsoever. So pure random numbers is all we use for that. And what we do is we have two 4-digit random numbers, gives you 8 numbers to write down. And while you're writing that, the subspace mind is getting ready. And then you're going to take your pen, you're going to put it on the paper right next to where you wrote the numbers, and whoosh, something's going to come out. Now it's going to be fast. I mean, like really fast. Now, if you have a delay, like of a 2 or 3 second delay, like you write the numbers down and then you wait for a few seconds and then carefully put the pen on the paper, it doesn't work. The conscious mind has taken over and you're going to draw just garbage. So you have to write the 8 numbers and quickly, immediately put the pen down on the paper and something will happen. Now, those things, those squiggles, are called ideograms. Now, the subspace mind doesn't have words like we use words, but it does have the ability to convey certain types of information as best it can. What we often use are squiggles that often resemble the thing that's at the target that the subspace mind is trying to describe. And very often the quick drawings look like the outline of something. For example, a mountain. The quick drawing that comes out is an angle line going up and down that's peaking. So it looks like you're tracing a mountain going up and down. And literally that's what the subspace mind is doing. It's not like drawing a mountain, it's like tracing what that is. Sometimes buildings often have angles, but they're perpendicular, like up and then to the right. So that's often what the subspace mind does. It has a pulse and you'll get a perpendicular type of drawing that comes out. Sometimes it's flat land and it shall be a horizontal line. And what it's doing is it's tracing out the flat land. Sometimes it's water and you'll see a little bit of a wavy line tracing out the waves. Now, whenever you have a spontaneous drawing like that, an ideogram, it doesn't guarantee that what you're drawing is actually at the target. The subspace mind is doing the best it can. For example, it may go slanted up, peaking and slanted down, and you say, wow, that looks like a mountain. I bet that's a mountain. But you don't really know. It could be a house that has a peaked roof like this. So you don't really know what that is, but at least you've got some information. Something there is peaked. You don't know what it is, but let's find out. It could be a mountain, it could be something else. So you have to start listening to it. Now what we do after we actually draw the ideogram is we start probing it. Now this is called the ask and then receive part of remote viewing. And this is what basically goes throughout. You actually take your pen and you touch with the point of the pen the actual ideogram, the actual drawing, and you literally poke it with this. And by poking it with the pen, you're actually perceiving, what is this? And you poke it into whatever, and you're actually, in your own mind, you're actually taking the pen and poking it into the target. Now we can talk about the physics of this later, but that's actually what you're doing. You're actually poking the pen into the actual real thing. So, but that's at a later time we can talk about it. The point is, you're actually, when you poke it into the line, let's say it's hard, gritty, feels like rock. Maybe it is a mountain, you never know, but it's hard and gritty. Now the thing about remote viewing perceptions is, when you're probing, you get what they call low-level information. Low-level information is it's hard, it's gritty, it's solid, it's heavy, it's damp, it's wet. Those are low-level information. Hey, this is Mount Everest. That's very high-level information. High-level information always is coming from the conscious mind. Low-level information is always coming from the perceptions. They're crude translations from the actual original whole perceptions of what it is into words. So if you look at your low-level information, it's almost always correct. Hard, gritty, wet, cold. And you look at the high-level information, Mount Everest, it's almost always incorrect. So the low-level information is correct, the high-level information is incorrect. What we do is we build up a lot of low-level information until finally, let's say the target is a mountain. You have so much low-level information that you're saying, this really does look like a mountain. You don't know if it's Mount Everest, but Mount Everest actually has some component in it that's correct. In fact, it could have been Mount Kilimanjaro, but you're saying Mount Everest. So there was something in the Mount Everest conclusion that was correct. You just don't know what part of it. The reality is it was a big mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Kenya. So you got the basic idea right, but the wrong mountain. So the conscious mind is putting a label on it that's incorrect, but there's some element of that that is correct. The low-level perceptions will be correct, but you don't know how to fully interpret it. So you build up the case with low-level information until you finally have enough where you start seeing in your mind a picture of what it is. And the picture is always going to be foggy or fuzzy, dim. It's not really clear like what you normally get when you're opening your eyes. But eventually you get really good with these perceptions that are foggy and fuzzy. You can feel the mountain and you can feel the sides of it. You sort of know what the thing is like. And then when you actually get to that stage, you see enough of it in your mind in that foggy, fuzzy image that's coming across to draw it. And then you draw it and you say, it has a slope here, there's something jagged coming out over here, and it's cold at the top and it's whitish at the top, and there's green stuff down below, it's a valley or something, but there's something green. So you're actually drawing this thing really nicely, and it's a good description of what it is. You still don't know if it's Mount Everest or what mountain it is, but the point is you're getting a really good description of it. And when you look at it later, you say, wow, well, that was a really good description of what that is, a sketch and everything. That's one of the reasons why art is so important. You can perceive anything as a remote viewer. I've told the remote viewers this till I'm blue in the face. Good remote viewers are always artists. They always know how to draw. Remote viewers have to be able to describe what they are perceiving and to draw it. Now, if you know an artist, when you look at an artist isn't just looking at the whole picture and then just drawing. The artist is looking at the arm, getting the line of the arm correct, and then there's a small shadow there and a crevice. He's drawing the crevice, or she's drawing the crevice, and then the hips move out like this, and he does that part. He does it piece at a time. That's how remote viewing works. All this low-level information, sort of a piece at a time. So what we're going to do to start off with is to develop a vocabulary list, a brief one, a very brief vocabulary list that is oriented around getting some words out that your subspace mind will use with basic, well, you might call it topographical information about the target, meaning is it peaked, is it flat, is it wavy? And this will be an ideogram list for that will basically you'll use throughout all of your remote viewing. And what we're going to do now is just work on this vocabulary with some random numbers that we're going to be using later. But before we use random numbers, let's develop some ideograms. So here, we have a piece of paper here. And you take this piece of paper. Now let's talk about the pen. Look at the pen we're using here. This is the pen you're going to use. There are many brands. This particular pen is a uniball pen, but the important part is that it's black ink and it's liquid ink, meaning it's not a pencil, and ballpoints are not good to use because they don't come out smoothly and they don't reproduce well. Black ink is important because when we scan sessions in to send them to somebody else, it has to be black ink, and liquid ink produces a really nice mark that you can actually see. Pencils are awful, meaning pencils, they don't scan well. Different types of pencils are different shades. Some are light, some are dark. Most importantly, they're reflective, so that they scan and then they have reflections on them. You don't want anything like that. So if you're a remote viewer, you're also an artist, and an artist knows her or his material. So anyway, what we want to have here is liquid ink. Now I'm going to draw a couple ideograms here. Notice you have a pad to write on. So this is a rubber pad that produces a nice smooth surface. I'm just going to write on the desk here for a second. And I'm going to go like this. I'm going to do some ideogram shapes that people often find as typical. And these are got angles associated with them. Okay? So let's see here. So what do you think those ideograms, only one would be used at any particular time, would represent?
A building?
Yeah, because they're angles. Those are angles. Look at the corners of the room, angles. So when you get ideograms like that, it's not always, it could be a cliff. It could be a cliff, but you don't know, but you have a good shot that, hey, that may be a building. So when we end up probing it, we're going to actually be taking the pen and touching the actual ideogram. And what does it feel like? Ooh, it feels, I can push into it. It's sort of soft. It feels like wood. It's like a texture of wood. Do you get the idea?
Yeah.
So immediately you know you're not talking about a cliff face because it's made of wood, whatever it is. All right? And then you start feeling around on it and you keep probing it. Okay? So let's actually work with that ideogram, and then I'm also going to give you another ideogram. If you saw that, what do you think it would look like?
Mountain.
Yeah, that looks like a mountain. So I'm going to say the word mountain, and when I say the word mountain, you're going to draw that. When I say the word structure, you're going to pick one of these and just keep on working with that. Okay? All right, and then I'm going to say also flat land. We're going to draw that for flat land.
Okay.
And one more, and then we'll have some others. What do you think that would be?
Wavy?
Well, it's what do you think it is? Well, it's got two things down here and a loop on the top.
A balloon?
If you had only a split second to draw something and you had to convey what it was.
A tree maybe, or?
No, it's got two things at the bottom and a round thing at the top. There's other things associated with things. We often call that a subject.
Subject.
Two legs and a head.
Oh, person.
It's a person.
Oh, person. Okay.
Actually, we use the word subject, and some remote viewing groups call them biologicals, but we just like to use the word subject.
Okay.
Okay? So that's a subject. So here, first I want you to try drawing a few of these ideograms carefully. That's going to be your pen. So very carefully, just draw really, really quickly. Pick one of these and just decide to draw it. Okay, now that's going to be the floor. So very commonly for practicing, that's good. That could be if you see that, you very well could be looking at a structure, but you're looking at the floor of it because the angle's at the bottom. Try drawing one of these two on the top because that's more common, and then try the other one. Let's go. Typically what happens is you go up and then across. Go ahead. That's a typical one. So let's focus on this one and this one. Do this one again. Try not drawing from the bottom up, but from the top down. Good. All right. So what we're going to do now is do a mountain ideogram. Do a mountain ideogram. Good. Another one? Okay, now do a subject ideogram. And now do flat land. Okay, now let's take out a clean piece of paper. And I'm going to say the words. And you're going to do the ideogram for it. Okay? Subject. That's good, but it's going to have to come out faster.
Okay.
A lot faster. Okay? You can start up here too to conserve space. Structure. Structure. Mountain. Subject. Flat land. Subject. Mountain. Structure. Try another one of the structure ideograms. Structure. Mountain. Subject. Subject. Flat land. Subject. Mountain. Structure. Structure. Water. Good. You see, you had to adapt.
Yeah.
Now that's what happens when you get a new pulse of something new. The subspace mind has to come out with something. Now, sometimes people end up having what they call complex ideograms, which is 2 or 3 of those things blended together. And what we do when that happens is we don't encourage that. In some remote viewing groups, they decode each part of the ideogram, but we encourage you to simply say to yourself, let me make an agreement with my subspace mind. It's too complicated for me to decode correctly a complex ideogram with 2 or 3 things in it. So if you don't mind, subspace mind, one at a time.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a number of ideograms, so you'll be able to get to it all, but one at a time is better. And believe it or not, your subspace mind is more than willing and more than happy to do it. Okay, you want one at a time? This is great. Okay, so what we're going to have is one at a time. And yeah, actually, no, we never write on the back of one. We have plenty of paper, so we get another one. All right, son. So these are called ideogram drills, what we're doing, where I actually say something and you do it. So let's go through some again. Structure. Subject. Mountain. Water. Land. Structure. Water. Subject. Mountain. Land. Energy. Good. You see, sometimes you just have to come up with something else. So that may be the word that your subspace mind finally decides on. Now remember, with any of these things, you can never really tell. That subject ideogram may turn out to be a balloon. Do you get the idea? You know there's something round there, and you had your first shot at it is maybe it's a subject, but in the reality, you're not going to know for sure. So you have to end up probing. Now, just touch one of these things with a pen and probe into it. Just probe it, and what you're doing is you're actually feeling it. Now, that's how you do it. You're actually probing it into it. Now remember, there are 3 types of perceptions. There are perceptions that you see with your eyes, those ocular perceptions. So light is coming through and going into the brain, and actually the neurologists have done studies that actually is being projected onto like a layer of cells in the brain, not in a projecting sense, but in a sense that they can actually do brain maps to actually see what kind of perceptions are actually coming. You can actually see which cells are lighting up, so to speak. Well, then there's the remembered images. So now you see your pen there? You look at the pen once. Now look at me and then remember what the pen looked like. You see the gray shape of the pen in front of you and the point on the top? But now notice when you're looking at me and you're looking at and you're remembering the pen, you can see through the pen. It's a little translucent. So a remembered image is actually being projected on the same layer of cells as a visual image. They have studied that and they figured that out. But it's not as bright. It's dimmer than the image that's coming through the eyes. The remote viewing image is dimmer still. It's dimmer than the remembered image. So that's why you have to be careful, because the remembered images or the fantasy image, the constructed images, often look dimmer like you just experienced with the pen, but in reality, they're not really remote viewing images. So this distinguishing between remote viewing images and other things is what this remote viewing stuff is all about, discriminating between what is real and what is not real. Okay, so let's do a few more ideogram drills. Subject, structure, mountain, structure, water, energy, explosion. Typically, an ideogram you want to have so that the pen does not leave the pen does not leave the paper.
Okay.
Okay, so let's come up with a word for explosion. I'm going to say the word explosion again, and let's just see what happens. Explosion. Okay, let's get another piece of paper. Subject, mountain, structure, water, land, subject, mountain, land, water, energy. Okay, now let's talk about movement. Let's say rapid movement, like you're seeing a jet fly across. Okay, so let's just put your pen down and say, I'm going to say the word movement, but this time it'll be fast movement. Fast movement. Okay, could be fast. Also, maybe try something slanted up. Although slanted up doesn't always work because it's very similar to a sloping side on a mountain. Although the mountain is usually the peaking thing. But it could be anything. Often it's very fast, so a line that's very fast. Often, though, many people use a line that ends up sloping, meaning it's... Because often things that are moving aren't moving perfectly horizontal, although sometimes they are, like a train. So if you see a flat line, that could mean flat land, but you have to probe it afterwards. It may be not flat land, but something's moving fast, and you won't really know what that flat line means until you probe it. For example, if you're looking at a really fast train, you know, what is that flat line? Then you have to probe it to sort of find out. So it could be land, could be fast movement. So let's use fast movement again, fast movement. Okay, that's something, but that would be something, for example, if you were moving in different directions.
Oh, okay.
So let's do fast movement where it's one direction, like a fast moving train or a jet. Fast movement, fast movement, fast movement. Okay, let's make it go flat now. Fast movement, fast movement. Typically we don't have it come off the paper.
Okay.
We keep the pen till it ends and then we stop it. Fast movement. And we don't hold the pen sort of like that, like you're gripping. Hold it like you're literally writing something. Yeah, just relax in writing. Let's get another piece of paper. We always have plenty of paper here.
Okay.
Okay. Subject. Subject. It's going to be much faster. Subject. Mountain. Flat land. Structure. Movement. Energetics. Now see, energetics is another word.
Yeah.
Energetics is like energy, but you don't know what that energetics means. Now, energetics can be fast movement. For example, energetics could be an explosion. Energetics could be fast movement. So sometimes energetics, you don't really know what it is. Sometimes it's just a wild squiggle. But let's just try energetics and see if the subspace mind can settle on a basic pattern. Energetics. Energetics. Subject. Mountain. Subject. Land. Water. Water. Energetics. Movement. Land. Water. Subject. Water. Structure. Okay, good. All right. So this is enough for now. These are drills. Now you don't have to do these for hours at a time. Actually, if you practice ideograms for a few days, maybe 5 minutes each, you don't want to do a lot. But 5 minutes, couple times a week, for a month, 5 minutes, literally just 5 minutes, not like an hour drawing. But these things are where you actually say the word yourself and quickly draw it. All right. Now what we want to do is practice what happens when we use a random number to precede. So let's get another piece of paper. And what I'm going to do is take a piece of paper here. And can I borrow your pen for a second? Now this is going to, you can take the pen, This is a set of random numbers. I just drew them, okay? And now this is not going to represent an actual target. This is just practice of writing the random numbers, and afterward you're going to put a mountain ideogram.
Each time?
Well, a couple times.
Okay.
Okay? So, but I want you to get used to listening to me say the numbers. And I say them with a little bit of a bark. And what it does is it jolts the conscious mind a little bit. Bark, 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 bark. Okay? And so it sort of rattles the conscious mind slightly. And so then an ideogram can come out after that. And you're going to use a mountain ideogram for this, okay? Now, what you do is you write them like this. 4 digits and then 4 digits, one on top of the other. So the first 4 digits and the second 4 digits right next to it. I mean, right underneath it, okay? And then you take the pen and immediately put it right alongside, immediately, like half a second, no, 1/4 of a second later.
I'm writing the numbers too?
You write the numbers,
okay.
And then you put the pen right alongside the numbers, okay. And the ideogram comes out.
Okay.
Now this time, get ready, we're going to have a mountain ideogram, okay? So let's see. 4, 3, 8, 7, 2, 8, 9, 5. Good. That was actually pretty good. Now we're going to do it again, same way, okay? 4, 3, 8, 7, 2, 8, 9, 5. Good. Now let's do it with a subject. We're doing the same numbers, but this will be a situation where there's a subject on the mountain. Let's say the target was Mount Everest, and it's a mountain climber. So you have a mountain and a subject. Okay? So we're going to have a subject ideogram come out next, with the same target coordinates. 4, 3, 8, 7, 2, 8, 9, 5. That was a mountain, okay? Yeah. Okay, now again. 4, 3, 8, 7, 2, 8, 9, 5. Good. Now if you were going through this, you would say, I have some mountain ideograms and I have a subject. Now these ideograms are representing elements of the target, and the word we use to represent elements of the target is the word gestalts.
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 Gestalt.
Yeah, G-E-S-T-A-L-T, gestalts. And so a gestalt is an element that's at the target. So let's say these were accurate gestalts of the target, and the target was a subject climbing Mount Everest. Well, now you have the idea that after probing it and figuring out that that's what the ideogram is, that there's a mountain involved and a subject involved. So now you know a lot. You know there's a mountain and a subject. Now you have to find out more about the subject. Is it a male? Is it a female? What clothing, what color clothing, what type of going, what's around the subject? Like, what is at the subject's feet? What is the subject standing on? Until eventually you build up this ice, there's something in the hand, it's heavy, it's like a hammer, and you're drawing with the hammer. Eventually you have a mountain climber with one of those, those hammer type things, with spiked boots on this mountainside with ropes and everything, and you draw it one piece at a time. And in fact, that's what it eventually turns out to be. But nowhere do you have like a television picture with everything clear. You're doing it piece by piece, and you're feeling each piece, and then you assemble it. That's why remote viewing typically takes about an hour. You're getting all the different gestalts and assembling them. Yes. So the first thing we do is simply collect gestalts. It's like, what are those puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, where you have all the pieces and they're scattered around. And what do you spend your time doing? Fitting the pieces together, and so you eventually have a picture. So with remote viewing, you don't have the picture. You have all the pieces, and you have to collect each one of the pieces. And then by the end of the session, you've, like a jigsaw puzzle, fit them all together. And finally, at the end of the session, you have an idea of what that thing is. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
That's how it works. Okay, now what we're going to do is shift gears. I'm going to get some real random numbers from a computer program that we use. It's on the website. And we're going to take these papers and put them off to the side in the desk that you have over there. And there's going to be a real target. Now, to give you an idea, since I'm going to be monitoring this session, I'm going to know what the target is. So I'm going to be, now when we do real work for the Farsight Institute, you do it solo, meaning there is no monitor. You're just by yourself in a remote viewing room, you're doing everything, that's it. But for now, for training, I am going to be in the room with you. This would not be done for scientific purposes, because in scientific purposes I could be leading you by expressions in my voice, expressions in my facial expressions, sort of looking at your work, and my eyebrows could go up if something's accurate, giving you hints. So for scientific work, the work that we actually do operationally at the Farsight Institute, we never use, well, we don't use monitors. We just do our sessions completely solo. A person's by herself or himself in a room, nobody else is in the room, and so on. But for training purposes, we have a person in the room. So I will know what the target is. It will be on my mind. So the telepathic connection, you don't have to try for this. It just happens automatically. And don't try anything about it. It's like what Yoda says. You do, no try. There is no try. You just go through the mechanical process, but in reality, the telepathic connection is actually being made with me, because I know what the target is. Now, when I do these things myself, when I do these things like in training like this, I'm very careful when I do it that I have only the target on my mind. Meaning, if the target is Mount Everest, that's the only thing I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to be doing later on tonight. I'm not thinking about anything else I want to do. It's just that. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. You can't see it, but I'm actually looking at the target photograph. Okay? So I'm actually looking at it. It's in my mind. I know exactly where I am. And that's the only thing I'm thinking about during the entire process. Now I have 2 4-digit random numbers that literally came from our website. So that's what I'm going to be using for this. So now what you do is you get a piece of paper, and you always hold it and put it in for these beginning things. You always have it in portrait mode, okay, which is what it is now. And you're going to start at the top here, and you're going to write the target coordinates, and then you're immediately, not with a second in the back, but immediately put the pen alongside the 2 target numbers, and some ideogram will come out. Okay? Ready? Mm-hmm. 3 7 4 7 8 5 0 3. Okay? Now what we do is we probe the ideogram. Now what you do is you poke your pen there, and you probe it, okay? And now you poke it a few times, okay? And what does it feel like when you poke it? Actually, you poke it, and each time you poke it, you say, what does that feel like? You poke into it. You just poke it once. Poke it once and stick it there, and if you need to, you can poke it twice. And you poke into it, and you say, what does it feel like? And you're looking for low-level descriptions, like, is it soft? Is it hard? Temperatures? You're talking, you know, like surface textures, things like that. What does it feel like? First answer the question, is it hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy?
I guess I'd say semi-hard. It's not really hard. It's not really soft. I guess
okay. So call it semi-hard.
Okay, semi-hard.
Okay? Okay, now that's a word you're going to want to use. Okay, so what we're going to use is some vocabulary. So you see what you're going to do is you're going to get a perception, then you're going to have some structure to write it in. So you see, if you don't have any structure, the conscious mind doesn't have anything to occupy itself. So in the beginning of a remote viewing session, you have a lot of structure. You have the 2 target coordinates. You have an ideogram. What other kind of structure might we want to use to keep the conscious mind occupied with things to do so you can keep focusing on these perceptions? Because that ideogram came out so quickly, like the conscious mind now has plenty of time to get back in control and take over. All right, so let's give it some more structure. So let's put an A right here, capital A, and a colon after that. Now let's describe what happened. Now here you have, it looks like it's a sloping, so you put down here, sloping upward.
Right
you actually describe the ideogram with words. Now you write after the colon, sloping upward, peaking, sloping upward, comma, peaking, and it looks like curving downward. So peaking, and curving downward. And I always have to write clear enough so other people can write it, can read it. Okay? Now, let's do that probing again. Now, we've spent some time describing it. By this time, the conscious mind is literally occupied with trying to describe a squiggle. Okay? So now let's do some probing. And you felt it was what? You have a choice here. Hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy. Those are the 6 initial choices we have. Hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy. What does it feel like? Poke it into it.
Semi-hard.
Semi-hard? Okay, write down semi-hard with a hyphen. No, it comes underneath that. Okay, so we know that it's semi-hard, and now we want to know what we call advanced descriptors. So this actually is what we call primitive descriptors, which is it hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy? But now the advanced descriptors, we're going to probe it again. And then say, is it natural, man-made, artificial, movement, or energetics? So we have those 5 choices. Natural, man-made, artificial, movement, or energetics. Probe it again. Is it natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics? Probe it. Pick one of those terms. What does it feel like?
Man-made.
Feels like man-made? Okay, so put man-made there. Okay. And now we put B colon underneath the A colon. Okay, and now for the B colon, you can write, I really have no idea what that is. So that's called no-B. Or if you actually say, it feels like, it's actually a guess, sort of a little conclusion that you're drawing based on what you've written here. But now here you have something that feels semi-hard. You're feeling it's man-made, and you're probing it. It's perfectly okay in the beginning to say, no B. Otherwise, if it looks like something that you recognize, for example, this goes up and down, it sort of looks like a mountain ideogram, but you're saying man-made, so that doesn't make sense. So, and it's sort of semi-hard, so you may sort of say, I don't know yet. So, no B would be sort of a typical thing for something like this, unless you had a feeling for what it was. What do you think?
Well, my feeling I kind of just feel like is wrong at the same time.
Go ahead, what is your feeling?
Kind of like, one of those fences that are...
Oh, a fence has a high level thing.
Oh, okay.
A fence is a high level. The most you could sort of say is basically for something like this, you're dealing with the ideograms themselves that we were coming up with. Subject, mountain, structure, land, movement, energetics. You're doing one of those things.
Oh, okay. So I guess, my feeling was a structure. Okay,
so put down structure or no B. Structure is fine. Okay, now you don't know if that's correct.
No.
You said, and that's a guess, okay?
No.
So at this point, let us say that you said, that's a big structure. I bet it's something like the Taj Mahal. Let's say you did something like that, okay? How would you do that? You'd say, well, that's a conscious mind description, the Taj Mahal. And you know that's wrong because it's a very high level piece of information. So that can't be right. So what you want to do is deduct it. Now deduct it has 2 meanings. A deduction is a conclusion, but it's also a subtraction. You're pulling something away, you're taking something away. So you want to actually take that Taj Mahal idea and get rid of it. Okay? So now we're going to do that again. I'm going to give you the target coordinates again, and you're going to probe it. Okay? And then you're going to follow the same thing, but I'm going to lead you through these introductory steps.
Okay.
Okay. Ready with the numbers? 3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3. Okay? A colon, Describe the movement of the pen with words. That's what I say, and what you do is you describe this. Now this is curving upward, peaking, curving downward. So, now if it was a straight line, you would have said sloping upward, but it's curving upward. So, peaking, comma, curving downward. Now we go for primitive descriptors.
B.
Probe the ideogram. Is it hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy? Probe it. Look at it and probe it. Don't take time. You
Sorry,
have
so I'm getting the same sort of feeling.
what does it feel?
The semi-hardish.
Semi-hard. To put it down. Now probe the ideogram again. Is it natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics? Quickly. No, probe it again. What does it feel like?
Artificial.
Okay, put down artificial. Okay, now B colon. So B colon is typically at this stage something a no B, unless you feel it's something.
I feel like it's just no B.
Okay, no B. Let's do it again. Okay, now notice you came up with artificial and man-made twice, okay?
What's that? What's the difference between artificial and man-made?
Well, artificial could be a beaver dam,
Oh, okay.
okay? And that in which case it's not man-made, but it's artificial.
Okay.
On the other hand, a building is both artificial and man-made, so you don't really know.
Okay.
But notice the ideogram came back twice. That means usually that the first ideogram might have had a decoding error, meaning it might be something wrong with what you said about it the first time.
Okay.
It typically goes away once you get it, and it goes on to another gestalt.
Okay.
So if it comes back, that's sort of an indication, I guess I didn't get that right. Now, it may be that there's nothing there except that one gestalt. So then it keeps coming back because there's nothing, but if there's more than one gestalt at the ideogram in the target and the same thing keeps coming back, try decoding it a little differently and seeing if it goes away finally.
Okay.
That means your next ideogram is something different. So anyway, let's try it on the paper right here in the spot that remains. Ready? 3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3. Okay? A, colon, describe the movement of the pen with words. Now this would be curving upward, curving over, curving downward. Curving upward, comma, curving over, comma, curving downward. This gets you into the mindset of describing literally what's there, not labeling it. Describing the movement of the pen is like describing it without labeling it. We want to stay away from labels, just describing. Okay, now probe the ideogram. Okay, is it hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet or mushy?
Hard.
Hard? Okay, put down hard. Advanced descriptors. Is it natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics? You're taking too long.
Sorry.
You probe it, you feel into it. Natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics. Probe into it, just follow the pen into the target. What does it feel? Does it feel natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics? Make a quick
Movement.
Okay, put down movement. B. What do you want to do it?
No B.
Okay, what does that ideogram look like?
Well, it's a subject.
It looks like a subject ideogram. So one of the first things you want to check is it a subject? And so now you have a hard description with a subject ideogram. So something's out of whack. It's either hard and not a subject, or it's a subject and it's not hard. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so your next one, what does it say? Movement? Okay, and so a no be would be typical for something like that. Let's put that to the side and do it again. By the way, this is perfectly good because what we're doing is we're going through the mechanics of it. I don't speak so much later, and then it'll be much easier to do this. Okay? So, 3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3. Okay, that's all right. Just do it again.
Okay.
Actually, when something like that happens, put the pen down, pick it up, and start again. Putting the pen down sort of disconnects with whatever happened before. Okay? Okay. All right, so 3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3. Describe the movement of the pen with words. So you go A colon. Describe the movement of the pen with words. And this would be horizontal, flat across. Horizontal, comma, flat across. Probe the ideogram. Is it hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy? You're taking too long. The conscious mind has way too much time.
Yeah.
If I see the probe going, then the conscious mind has
those words just jump out at you?
Yeah, the
I had soft jump out.
sometimes the thoughts, but it's mostly a feeling. What does it feel like? Literally, if you were touching something, what does it feel like?
Okay.
Try it again. Hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy? What?
Soft or maybe mushy, but soft, I guess I would say.
Okay, what did you say?
I said soft, but maybe mushy.
Okay, so put down mushy.
Mushy, okay.
Let's probe it again. Does it feel, for the advanced descriptors, natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics?
Natural.
Okay, put down natural. B, colon. What do you think it is?
Grass. What's that? Oh, am I not supposed to use...
No, yeah, what does it feel like? Does it feel like you're actually looking for a label of the ideogram? Is it one of your ideograms that you've remembered?
So wait, I have to use a vocab term?
So you have enough information now to make a guess if you can describe which one of these ideograms it actually stood for. Remember we had different ideograms?
Flat land?
Yeah, so if that feels like land, put down the word land. Meaning you're describing the label for the ideogram. So sometimes you know enough now to say, okay, that ideogram represented one of the words I remembered in my ideogram drills.
Okay.
And if it doesn't look like something you remembered in your ideogram drills, and you can't figure it out, just say no B.
No B, okay.
But at this point, you're willing to say, this is one of my ideograms that I remembered, and it feels like that.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Now let us say we had that idea that you were thinking, okay, this is a runway at an airport. Okay. But that's a deduction. That's a conclusion, and you want to get rid of it because you know it's wrong. So what you do on the side, don't do it here, but you put a capital D and a dash and write out whatever that thought was.
Okay.
Like airport runway. Then you put the pen down, pick the pen back up, and start again. So every time the conscious mind leaps in with, oh, flat land, it must be a runway at an airport. You write it, you go D dash, stands for deduction, which is a conclusion and a subtraction. D dash, airport runway, put the pen down, pick it up, and start it again.
So if I immediately thought this was grass, could I do that for it?
Yeah, if you thought it was grass, then you go, okay,
grass.
you did?
Oh, yeah.
So D dash grass. Okay, now you put the pen down and pick it up. Now it may in fact be grass, but you don't know. The point is, there's always something correct in every deduction. You just don't know what part it is. Ready? We're going to continue with the target coordinates. 3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3. A, colon, describe the movement of the pen with words.
Horizontal, flat across.
Horizontal, flat across. Primitive descriptors. Probe the ideogram. What does it feel like? And it's always one of these 6. Hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy. Probe the ideogram.
Semi-soft.
What's that?
Semi-soft.
Write it down. Probe the ideogram again. Advanced descriptors. Is it natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics? Probe it deeper. Move your mind into the probe. Okay, now what is it? Natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics. Those are the choices.
I'm gonna just say man-made. I'm gonna say man-made now.
Okay, put down man-made. B colon. Does it seem like anything that, do you think that's one of your, you can put no B, or if you think you've got...
No B.
Okay, fine.
Oh, well, yeah, no B. Well, I guess I could say, I was thinking of it as land, so I guess,
Land?
yeah.
Okay, put down land. Okay, let's do another ideogram. Often people put the pen down too from time to time just to break it.
Okay.
And then pick it back up.
If I had a deduction anyway.
If you have a deduction, you must put the pen down after that.
Okay.
And if you have a deduction now, you have to write it down.
Okay.
If you don't write it down, it hangs with you. Meaning, and it comes back later.
This is what happened over there.
Yeah, so if you don't have a deduction, now after the deduction, put the pen down and pick it back up. That's why you get rid of it. Deduction is subtraction. The writing it down is subtracting. If you don't write it down, it's gnawing at you, and it'll keep coming back and control the session.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go ahead. By the way, the people that do controlled remote viewing, or CRV, they call D or deductions AOLs. AOLs for an analytic overlay, where your analysis and you're overlaying on top of that. But we like the word deduction because we like to use the word, it's a conclusion and also a subtraction. But it has the same meaning in AOL. They declare their AOLs to get rid of them. We declare our deductions to get rid of them. Okay, ready with the target coordinates? 3, 7, 4, 7. 8, 5, 0, 3. Okay? A colon. Describe the movement of the pen with words. That's curving upward, curving overward, curving downward. And a comma between each one, like curving upward, comma, curving over, comma, curving downward. Okay, now, probe the ideogram again for the primitive descriptors, and it's always one of these 6. Hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy. Probe. You can keep your eyes open. Just...
Wet.
Okay, put down wet. Okay, probe the ideogram again, and there's 5 advanced descriptors. Natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics. So don't spend a lot of time. What does it feel like? And then to make it's one of those 5. Natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics.
Kind of. I just sort of got like an image in my head.
What was that?
It's just like the image of clouds in the sky.
Of what?
Clouds in the sky.
All right. D dash clouds in the sky. Put the pen down. They could be correct. There could be clouds in the sky. Now pick it up. Now you must use one of those advanced descriptors. You have 5. Natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics.
Movement.
Does it feel like movement, or you just, is it feeling like it? That's fine. Put down movement.
I feel like I just was describing clouds in the sky.
Okay, that's fine. B colon. What is it? What do you feel like? Was it one of those words, or?
The movement one, or?
Or does it feel like movement?
Somewhere.
Then that would be a B.
Okay.
That's a low-level description, and that's perfectly okay. Okay, next piece of paper. By the way, we normally don't do this like this many times. We're just getting used to drawing ideograms, and Okay?
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3.
Oh.
Okay, that's a break. Put the pen down. Pick the pen up. Remember, you have to put the pen on the paper to draw the ideogram immediately afterwards. 3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3. Okay? A colon. Describe the movement of the pen with words. That would be sloping upward, curving downward, curving under, horizontal flat across. So sloping upward, curving over, sloping downward, curving under, and horizontal flat across.
Sloping upward.
Keep following it.
over,
Sloping upward,
downward,
curving over, sloping downward, curving under.
And then across.
Probe the ideogram for primitive descriptors. Always again, hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet or mushy.
Could you say those again?
Yeah, there's 6 always. And they're opposites, hard and soft, and then semi of both. Semi-hard, semi-soft, and then wet or mushy. So hard, soft, then a semi version of each, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet or mushy.
Hard.
Okay, put that down, hard. Probe the ideogram again. Is it natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics?
Artificial.
Okay, put down artificial. B.
I don't have a B.
Okay, put down no B. You'll get better at putting B's down. We're going to fill up this page and then we'll go on. All right, ready? Put the pen down. Pick it up. Okay, and now, ready?
Could I make a deduction so I make sure it's out of my mind?
Deduct what?
I don't know what to call it, but it's that fence that's behind the catcher on a baseball field.
Yeah, just write that down. D, whatever it is.
Because that's what I've had in my head ever since the
Backstop?
first one. Is that what it's called? The backstop?
Behind the catcher on the baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah, the backstop.
Okay. We'll call
I think.
Let's just call it backstop. Backstop.
Okay, put the pen down always. Pick it up. Okay, now, ready? 3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3. Okay. A, describe the movement of the pen with words.
Sloping upward, curving down, sloping downward.
Write it down.
Okay.
Don't think about it. Just write it down. Okay, now probe the ideogram for primitive descriptors. Hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, or mushy.
Soft.
Okay, put that down. Probe for advanced descriptors. Natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics.
Man-made.
Okay. B, do you have a B? Okay, we'll do it one more time.
Put the pen
Now, wait,
down.
when I'm saying no B,
What's that?
what is the B supposed to be again?
The B typically is, remember when we were doing the ideogram drills?
Like mountain, something like
Mountain, subject, land,
that. Okay, that's
movement, energetics, things like that.
okay. Even if it's not a mountain, if I think it's just like a upward something thing.
So then you could write sloping land, but it has to be really primitive.
Okay, I don't really have one.
What's that?
I don't really have a deduction
Okay.
like that.
All right, so let's go on now. Last one, okay?
Okay.
3, 7, 4, 7, 8, 5, 0, 3. Okay? A, colon, describe the movement of the pen with words. Sloping upward, peaking, curving downward. probe the ideogram for the primitive descriptors, and they're always the same 6. Hard, soft, semi-hard, semi-soft, wet, mushy.
Semi-hard.
Okay. Probe the ideogram again for the advanced descriptors, natural, man-made, artificial, movement, energetics.
Natural.
Okay. B.
I don't feel like.
Just look at it. What do you think it looks like? You have a picture and a couple descriptions.
Well, can I write a D, a deduction? Can I write a deduction?
Well, say what it is.
Tree.
What do you think? Say the word that you're thinking.
Tree.
What's that?
Tree.
Creek?
Tree.
Huh?
Tree.
Tree. That's sort of an in-between thing. You can put down, that's actually sort of a, put down deduction of a tree, and in B, put foliage. Because foliage is, and it may be a tree.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so let's actually take a look at what this target actually is, okay? And then you'll see how things turned out.
Oh, fine.
So the actual target is the Merced River in Yosemite, California, from the camera's perspective of this picture. Now Yosemite is filled with mountains. There are trees, in fact. There is water. Now let's look at your ideograms. Let's spread out. Let's put the picture of the target off to the side, and let's put these things out. Now in the future, we're going to actually number our pages, okay? So actually, let's look at the pictures. Let's look at the ideograms. What do you see here, these ideogram labels? I mean, not labels. What do the ideograms look like?
Flat.
Flat land, don't they? And look at the picture. You indeed have flat water and flat land. Okay? This looks like a curved, low-level hill. And in fact, in this area of Yosemite, see in the picture, you have a hill going up? Okay? That looks like a mountain. Mountains are filled with, Yosemite filled with mountains, okay? Again, you didn't get the mountain right, so it came back. What does this look like, the ideogram?
It was a subject.
It's a subject.
Yeah.
There is, in fact, a subject there taking the picture. So there's a perfect, there's flat land, water, it's a river. Every single one of these ideograms are, in fact, perfectly correct. It's the decoding that you get good at. Now look over here. What is this? What did you actually call this one? Actually, what did this feel like? It felt like, okay, this actually could be movement. In fact, you have water. This is the Merced River.
Yeah.
So these look like actually movement.
I remember with this one, I kept on having this vision of like a yellow line going outwards, like, but I didn't know if is that movement or is that like just
Yeah,
like
that could be movement.
Like
It could have also been the reflection of the sun coming out. It could have been a bird going through, a yellow bird. They have all types of colorful birds there. Could have been all sorts of things. But you do have movement here. Okay. Now look what you finally got down here. As you were doing this more, you finally perceived a tree with foliage, and you figured it out. Finally, it was semi-hard and natural. You see how it sort of fits into it? I noticed also that when you did these things, you were getting a little frustrated with all of this, and this came out quickly. And you sort of said it with a resignation. It feels natural, and you just did it right away. In fact, it was correct. These ones, early ones, you were thinking about it longer and trying to get it right. This one, you basically, I could see in your face, you stopped trying to get it right, and you just sort of, it feels natural, and you put it down. So that came out to be perfectly correct. Do you see how this works?
Yeah, yeah.
So the ideograms are always going to be correct.
I was very frustrated with
But
all
it's
of
the
these.
it's the decoding of the ideograms. So you always know you can trust these squiggles. But the question is, what do the squiggles mean? So the subspace mind is trying to get the information to you. As long as you do it fast and you did it fast enough, it'll be there. Then you got to figure out what it means. And so and by the way, this is a delicate dance between the subspace mind and the conscious mind. Conscious mind, initially, we're sort of tricking it to sort of get stuff through. Eventually, the conscious mind becomes cool with it and says, this is okay. This is cool. I get credit for getting this stuff right. And so it says, subspace mind, go right ahead. And then you calm down and you can perceive all types of stuff.
I see.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Now, after every time you do a session, this is the beginning of a session. After every time you do one, you don't dive right into another one. You at least wait 5-10 minutes, take a bathroom break. You have to, otherwise you drag the perceptions into the next target. So you wait 5 to 10 minutes. Now, if you have a long session that's involved, that's like sort of powerful, like a deep session with many pages, then that's it for the day, or at least for the afternoon.